Hello and welcome back to my channel and to my Fighting Fantasy Gamebook retrospective. And this time we've reached books 29 and 30, Midnight Rogue and Chasms of Malice. Now back in the day when I collected these books as a teenager, Midnight Rogue was the last one that I remember really enjoying before I gave up collecting them. I thought it was quite a jolly little adventure, right? It's a sequel to City of Thieves, the classic by Ian Livingstone. And it's set in Port Blacksand, which is a great location, this horrible city full of thieves and rogues, right? And it's all set at night. I quite like that, it's quite atmospheric. It's all set over the course of one night. And the idea is that you're this young pup who wants to become a thief with a capital T. You want to be part of the Guild of Thieves. But to be in the Guild of Thieves, you need to undergo a rite of passage, right? So they say to you, now look lad, you want to be one of us. You got to go out there and you got to steal something. And if you do that, then we'll let you into the guild. So you have to go out there and you have to steal the Eye of the Basilisk, this great big jewel, right? And I thought that was a lovely little idea for a book. Going back and revisiting it is a bit like what I felt revisiting Forest of Doom, if you remember that video all the way back, was I loved the atmosphere and the setting, but when I went back and revisited it, I found it was very, very simplistic. It's very basic. It's very easy. You can play through this book in less than an hour. And the structure of it is very simple, right? So you go out into the city. I quite like the fact that people know that you're a young thief who's trying to make his way in the world and get accepted. I quite like that, right? So you go to 3 different parts of the city. And you have to pick up 3 clues. And it tells you, helpfully, in the book, when you've picked up a clue. You need to get all 3 clues. And once you've got the clues, only then can you find your way to Barrow Hill, where the jewel is. Why can't you just look it up on a map? A bit strange, that. Anyway, so you go to Barrow Hill. There's a nice little bit of business where the dungeon of the book is in a barrow, and there's this sort of archer statue, and where he aims his arrow is where you go into the barrow. I quite like that detail. And the last third of the book is a kind of traditional dungeon. You get in, you find the Eye of the Basilisk, and it's all very nice. And then, right, what happens, right? You get this jewel, and suddenly the doors burst open, and all these thieves come in and say, well done, lad, you've done it. Actually, you know that jewel, it's a complete fake. We just put it there. You think, you bastards, you've put me through all that. Death-defying stunts I've got, horrible monsters. And it's a fake jewel at the end of it. Thanks very much. But anyway, that's the adventure. So, it's a bit too easy. You know what it feels like? It was written by Graham Davis, a one-time writer. And the whole feel of it is like those Scholastic books. The FF books recently have been taken over by a company called Scholastic. And they've obviously aimed them for a younger market with more sort of softer, nicer, more child-friendly artwork. And this book feels like that. Just like you're a young thief trying to, earn your spurs. It's like this is a book for the young FF adventurer who's trying to get into these books. If you've gone through the first 28 books, this feels like small potatoes, really. And I was a bit disappointed reading it this time round. The whole thing is helped immensely, though, by the artwork. It's done by John Sibbick. He does both the cover and the interior artwork. The cover is wonderful. There's the young thief, there's the Eye of the Basilisk, and 2 grinning gargoyles leering over it. It's a great cover. And the interior artwork is absolutely terrific. It's just what you want in a Fighting Fantasy game book. There's loads of good monsters, loads of atmospheric places to investigate. I love it. I think it's just perfect. I mean, to be fair to Graham Davis, he does try to introduce some new things. You're a different type of adventurer. You're not a barbarian or warrior or a wizard using magic. Instead, you're a thief, and you have special skills. You have pickpocket, picklock, climb, sneak, hide, spot hidden, and secret signs. And that's nice. It's a nice little touch. The only thing is, I'm not entirely convinced that if this was a Steve Jackson book, he'd have worked out carefully how you need to process through the game. You pick 3 of these skills, and with those 3 skills, what's the best path through the game? Or that you need these certain skills at certain places. I'm not entirely convinced that Graham Davis has worked it out that way. It's a bit random. What I can tell you, though, is pick, lock and climb, don't choose those. Because you get an item that gives you those things anyway. So it's completely... I would pick Sneak is very useful. Spot hidden is almost essential, and maybe hide. Actually, that's my tip. So, okay, but like Forest of Doom, not quite as good as I remember it. Then we go on to Chasms of Malice. This is the second book from Luke Sharp, who wrote Starstrider, so it's his first fantasy book. Okay, we've got yet another necromancer coming back from the dead. We must stop him coming back from the dead, otherwise he'll cause chaos. And yet again, he lives in this cleft in the earth. What is it with clefts in the earth? This book, I'll give Luke Sharp some credit. I quite like the background stuff at the beginning. It's quite well written. It sets the scene well. He also tries a new innovation, right, in this book. You get given a cat, Tabitha the cat, this secret magical cat, who's got 9 lives and can help you 9 times. But again, I don't think really Luke Sharp's really worked this out. I can never work out how to use the cat, can you? Like, you can use it 9 times, right? But then you go on in the adventure, right? This cat, I can't work out how big the cat is, because sometimes it's hiding in your hood, and sometimes it's hiding in your pocket. It's a bit uncomfortable, isn't it? Anyway, and then sometimes, right, it goes off and does its own thing. It goes off in a wall and it gets you a furry worm to eat. And then sometimes you encounter some monsters and it helps out, other times it doesn't help out. And this is one of those adventures which is really irritating, right? So when you get to the last bit, when you get to the necromancer's castle, right, it says, do you want to go left or right? You go left, you open the door and it says, oh, there's a shield here, and it just explodes and you're dead. So you have to go right. Next time you go left or right, you go right and it says, oh, there's some orcs here who fire an arrow at you and kill you. Thanks very much for that. It's a bit irritating. But what's even more irritating, the fact that you can die instantly so many times. I mean, in this book, there's lots of test your luck bits, right? Where you test your luck and you say, you're unlucky, you're dead, bye. It's like, come on, that's not great gameplay, is it? But what's particularly irritating about that is, why doesn't the cat help you? You go into a room where there's some exploding shield, the cat doesn't help you. 50 paragraphs back, the cat couldn't wait to help you out. It doesn't make any sense. What's the cat doing there? I love cats. I'm a big cat fan. The other thing about this book is, okay, I'm going to give Luke Sharp some credit here. It's very busy. There's a lot going on. There's a lot to do. And what I do like about the book is that the safe path is very complicated. So there's loads of different ways you can make your way. Yes, I've just killed a fly. Who needs to kill orcs and dragons? Okay, but there's lots of different ways you can make your way through. It's a complex, so you can get into, the safe path in different ways and different tunnels, and that I quite like that. That makes the game more exciting and more interesting. I kept having to put my finger in different bits. But the problem is that none of the gameplay is really that interesting, and it's so random, right? So there's a couple of mazes in the book which really irritated me. But what particularly irritated me is, you're told in the adventure, right, you have to kill 7 Kudum. These are malice warriors, and if they're let loose on the world, there'll be terrible things happening, everyone. So you've got to kill the Kudum, right? And these Kudum, you don't come across them through good gameplay or deduction. They just come across them entirely randomly. So at one point, you get kidnapped by some orcs, you get taken to their village, and you just happen to come across one of them. And then depending on which way you run out of the hut afterwards, you meet another one. What's that about? Then you go into a tunnel. If you turn left, you meet a Kudum. If you turn right, you just find some ordinary room with a snake in it or something. It's just so random. If these 7 Kudum are the key of the game, you should be finding them in a decent way, in an intelligent way. And then this leads me to the other problem I have with this book. You don't need to kill all the Kudum. So you get to the big bad necromancer, and actually you don't need to kill the Kudum at all. And you can kill the necromancer, you can kill the necromancer without killing the Kudum, and also just by hitting a particular part of his body, which you can't possibly guess or know beforehand. God, that's irritating. You can feel I'm getting Masks of Mayhem irritated here, can't you? Well, it's interesting that we should mention Masks of Mayhem, because this book tries to imitate Masks of Mayhem. Because right at the end, you killed the big bad, right? You go back to your place where you come from, and there's a traitor, just like there is in Masks of Mayhem, right? And then the traitor, you just dispatch the traitor because he's got a sign on his back, and then that's the end of the game. So it's really anticlimactic. That's how I feel about the whole book. It's not terrible. It works. There's a lot going on. There's a lot to do. It's good, but it's not brilliant. That's how I feel about the artwork. This unites two of the great artists of this series. You've got Les Edwards doing a cover. It's a good but not particularly brilliant cover. And you've got the wonderful Russ Nicholson, Warlock of Firetop Mountain, Russ Nicholson, back on duties. But it's good artwork, as always, from Russ, but it's not brilliant. It's not him at his absolute peak. That's what I feel about this whole book. It's okay, but it's not brilliant. And you know what, right? Reading these two books again, that's how I've started to feel about the whole series. That's how I felt about the series after Creature of Havoc. I just thought it was going through the motions. There didn't seem to be any originality. They weren't exploring any new zones. Like Freeway Fighter explored Mad Max, and Robot Commando. Not that I like Robot Commando, but explored this world of robots and dinosaurs. It just feels like we're going back to a land scene all the time. We're going back to tried and trusted, fantasy adventures, sequel to City of Thieves. Nothing original seems to be happening. Though I admit I missed Phantoms of Fear first time round. And that's why I stopped collecting. I just feel, reading these two books again, they're not terrible, but they're just humdrum. They're run-of-the-mill. And what this series needs, it needs something really special and original. Will I find it next time around?